Greetings, family. My name is Stephen Wright, and I'm the son of Harry and Julie Wright. And I am a long term resident of Cross, South Carolina, a little town in rural Berkeley County where parts of our family history can be found. And where I stand here today, behind me you see the water. I'm at a place that is called Spires Landing. And back behind me, this water, it wasn't always water. At one point, it was civilization that was here. We had many towns, and I've been told this, by various family members. Of course, I didn't live here during this time, but there was a time where there were many areas or many cities where this water is. Over there in that direction, there was a city called Trow. Behind me, to the right or either left of my shoulder, there was a city called Irving. And there were other towns such as Black Branch and many other cities or civilizations that were once here before this water came. So the reason why this water came is because around the 1930s, maybe around 36, up until about maybe the early 1940s, this actually was one of the largest land clearing projects in the world at that time. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to create these lakes. So there was always a Santee River, and the Santee River still exists today, but it doesn't exist as it once was. So the Santee River was diverted, and they created the two lakes from that diversion. And where we are now, this is Lake Moultrie. I'm sorry, this is Lake Marion. Yes, this is Lake Marion, and on the other side of the diversion canal, that is Lake Moultrie. So that's how these two lakes were created, and they were created to produce electricity, hydroelectricity, because the area, of course, didn't have electricity, so they wanted to bring it. And of course, it has its recreational purposes as well. People fish here. People used to swim out here, but mainly it's used for fishing and those related recreations. But I bring up the point of this place being the home of our ancestors. This is where they once lived. So I just wanted to come back here and give this brief talk at a place where I know that the spirit of our ancestors dwells, and maybe they could bring some insight into this talk as well. But today, and I'm not there with you all today because I had prior obligations, but I just want to share my aspect of our family history, the billiards, what we've come to gather here today and celebrate. So my father, and I have to explore the paternal aspect of my family, because that's where we're going to lead to this name, Billiard, because of course my last name is Wright at the moment. But we're going to briefly explore how to get to the Billiard family from the perspective of my family, and which is your family. So my father's mom which is my grandma. Her name was Irene Glover. And of course, Irene, she married Solomon Wright. And of course, they had many children. Some of the names which you may be familiar with are Elijah Wright, my uncle Elijah, as we dearly called him, who was passed on. We had my Uncle Val, which his name was William, but we called him Uncle Val. And we had Ruth Wright Haskell. She married Mr. Fortune Haskell, and they're both passed on. And then I had another aunt by the name of Bert Major Wright. She married my Uncle Major that we once called him. And then of course we have my father Harry, and then his brother Raymond, and they're the only two that are left living today. But my grandma Irene, that's where we'll focus. We're not focused on the right, as I said, on the right side of the equation, but my grandma Irene, her parents were Tracy Glover and Flora Spann. Yeah, Flora Spann. So, of course, those two, they had many children in addition to my grandma Irene. Some of the names that you may have heard were Tenny, who we call my Aunt Lack, Tenny President, but we called her Aunt Lack, and that's actually the only aunt that I knew. In fact, I didn't even know my grandmother because she passed away in 1980, before I was born in 82. But there were other sisters, other names, and brothers as well. Other names that you may have heard of my grandma's siblings were Charlotte. There was an Aunt Sweet. There was Mary. There was an Aunt Alice, who married Edward Pinkney. And there were other siblings as well. Some of the brothers, there was a brother named William Glover. There was a brother named Raymond, who I believe passed on at a very young age. And there are others. And, it would take me all day to go through each family, but I want to get us to the billiard, so I have to go through at least some of these names. So we come back to the name Tracy Glover, and like I said, he married Flora Spann, and the Spann family, that's another side of the family. But in order to get to the billiard, we have to come back to Tracy Glover. And history tell us, the records tell us that Tracy's father was Willie Glover. But Willie Glover married a woman by the name of Elsie Billiard. So boom, we're at the billiard name. It's been, some steps to get there, but that's where we are. So we have Elsie Billiard. And Elsie, it even goes back a little bit further. Elsie's mom was named Hannah, and Hannah's husband was named Sanders Billiard. So this is the furthest that the records, at least my understanding, that I can go from, my branch or root of the family. And of course, this is just one branch. We have the other branches, which I'm sure you will learn about today, or either learn about through the family reunion booklets that have been created already. And I'm so appreciative of those books and the research that everyone has done thus far. But that's my portion of the family. So we arrive at Sanders Billiard, and Hannah. And Hannah's last name, at least my understanding is, we don't actually know what her last name is. But, and this is where I'll conclude, but I think her name, her last name, which we don't know, it points to something higher, that we can all reflect on. And of course, I'm sure she had a former maiden name, but that's not the point that I'm trying to drive home here. I'm trying to drive home the point that regardless of what our names are, whether we are Billiards or whether we are Jones or Jenkins or Rogers or Browns, whatever the name may be. And yes, we should take pride in these names. We have family members, through history that have endured much under that name. And we must honor that and respect that and reverence that. But going back to Hannah, who has no last name that we know of, it points to something higher. Is that, yes, we have our names, but the essence of who we are is beyond names. It is beyond gender. It is beyond ethnicity. It is beyond what we perceive. That is the essence of who we are. So essentially, our true name cannot be expressed in words. The words can point to a higher truth, to a higher understanding. And that's what we can use these words for, to discover that which is beyond the actual name. So I'm going to conclude there, and I trust and I hope that this talk has been helpful to someone. I know I'm relatively young, but I've been privileged to be able to sit at the feet of many of our family members, and I pick their brains. And I would like to encourage, the youth here who may hear this to do the same. Ask your grandmother questions. Ask your mom questions. Ask your dad questions. Just ask questions. That's the only way that you're going to uncover the truths in life, by asking questions. So just continue to do that, and continue to carry on. One of the attributes of this family, I believe in strongly, and I see it evident, in the people in the family, is that we are a caring and kind and compassionate people. So I would want to implore and trust that attribute will continue throughout our lives and in the lives of our children. And thank you.